Speak about a little bit in terms of some metrics. So obviously one popular one that everyone probably will have heard of is expected goal. So question around that, David, really. So one is how has that developed over time in terms of, I'm sure over time it's becoming more accurate because there's more metrics and things that are kind of put into making that model. So how has that changed over time? And then maybe then the follow-up question to that would be what else could be added to an expected goals model to make it even more accurate and more reliable?
Think I'm going to go in a slightly opposite direction because I
Go
feel like
for
I've been waffling on about modeling and like not giving a
it.
concrete example because expected goals is for me a good way of giving a concrete example of this. So I always talk about it of how much of the goal you can see. So
Yeah,
like now I'm looking at the two goalposts that frame you. And if I go out to the edge, then that angle changes. And
yeah,
that is the basic parameter that we use in expected goals. It's like how much of the goal you can see. The more of the goal you can see, the better chance you've got of scoring, and
mm,
thus the higher expected goals. And that couples together the geometry of shooting with the statistical model of shooting. And I think that's really key to how you approach different things. Now, of course, that's the first model, and you can put in distance, you can put in the positions of the defenders and how they block the goal. But I think that every time you put in a new thing into the expected goals model, it has to make some sort of footballing sense. So
yeah,
when we got tracking data, we started to look at this cone that I've built here, and we looked at the number of players inside that cone.
yeah,
We looked at the positioning of the goalkeeper in that cone, and we could start to get in more detail that way. So again, we weren't like working to make it a better and better model that predicts better and better if a shot will be a
yeah,
goal. We're working to make it include more and more understanding.
mm,
And then that was the XY positioning. Now we're getting 3D tracking data. So you can even look to some degree like what foot the goalkeeper might be on when the shot
yeah,
is
yeah.
taken.
Wow.
You can certainly, yeah, you can look at definitely where the not that just the position of the defending players, but their body position, how they're orientated with respect to the shot, and you can start to put those types of things in it. So for goalkeeper training, for example, for feedback to goalkeepers,
Mm,
you can really get into the detail of how you were positioned as the shot was about to be taken and give that type of feedback. We're doing a study just now. I'm doing a study with, I have a PhD student who works for the English FA as head of data architecture, actually, but he's also doing a PhD in this. And what he is looking at is scanning behavior. And
yeah,
so this isn't to do with the expected goals model, but you can actually look at the scanning of the players
mm,
using this 3D body posture data, and it's really getting down to that level.
cool, nice. That's it. Sounds interesting. I mean, another thing I want to bring up, David, is I watched a video. I think it was at Oxford. You presented how can a mathematician be a manager, which again I'll link down below. People check that out. It's from a few years ago, but it was interesting. It was fun nonetheless. So one thing that you mentioned in there was, and you did actually mention it about a couple of minutes ago, was when you visited Barcelona and the data scientists there, and I found it really interesting how you had a slide on there in terms of how they design what they do, of how they control the space as a team. So where players will
Yeah.
come first, where the opposition will come first. So can you just expand a little bit on that? Because I just found that really, really interesting.
Yeah, so they use primarily something called pitch control, and the idea of pitch control is who comes to the ball first. If you just drop the ball down on the pitch at that particular point,
Hmm.
which player, given their speed of movements, which player would come to the ball first?
Yeah.
And that gives you a kind of heat map so you can see which areas you control. So they have a Barcelona color and then they
Hmm.
have a green color and they say which areas of the pitch do you control? And then from there, you can think, well, what are the possible passes that you can make? So if you control a particular area of the pitch, then a pass to that area can be very effective.
Hmm.
And that allows precisely to measure how they control those tight spaces between the lines, for example. The project we went on to do together with the Barcelona team was to look at what they were calling destructive runs. So this would be a run where you open up space for someone else. You take the run, and then you see how you drag a defender with you,
Yeah.
basically. And then it opens up a space for another player to run in. And so you can calculate those things and work out, well, what are the best runs to make if players are making good runs to open up that type of space, all from this starting principle of pitch control.
Mm.